signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Gotham Chronicles Beyond the Bat Signal. I'm your host, Don Kanika. Join me as we dive into the Batman's lore, dissecting the Rogues Gallery and uncovering the stories of our iconic vigilante known as the Dark Knight. Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode, where we are actually going to discuss our top 5 favorite films. And it's not just any favorite film, it is top 5 Batman films. And these are solo Batman films. But before we get into all that, I need to introduce a very special guest because I am not going to be doing this alone, thankfully. And he is, I would say, probably the most knowledgeable Seinfeld fan. And I dare anyone to challenge him to Seinfeld trivia. I'm going to say pursuit. He is also one half of the host or co-host of the Scream Along podcast. I give you none other than Rick. Rick, welcome to Beyond the Bat Signal. Thanks for joining us.
Man, thank you for having me, and what an introduction. I'm gonna have to brush up on my Seinfeld knowledge a little bit more. But thank you so much for letting me have the opportunity. I'm really stoked to be here and talk about everything Batman with you and talk about our top 5 films. So thank you so much for having me.
So before we get into it, and I'm sure like we'll do some plugs at the end. Like you're a big horror film fan, am I right?
You've got that right.
So yeah, so you got your own podcast. It's Scream Along podcast.
Yeah, so if your listeners are interested in like the whole horror thriller realm of things, it's called Scream Along. It's
Yeah.
available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And myself and my co-host Eric, we pretty much we talk everything about the Scream movie franchise. That's really our bread and butter. But we also talk about anything that's horror thriller related in TV, in movies. So yeah, we talk everything about horror and thriller.
So for those of you listening, Rick and Rick, I should kind of said this right at the beginning. L- Rick is a lifelong friend of mine. So him and his twin brother, I've grown up with since literally since birth. They moved onto my street when they were 5. I think you're, if I'm not right, if
Yeah,
I'm
we were
not
five
wrong.
years old. Yeah.
And obviously I was born, and literally playing road hockey, or you're always playing King of the Hill, which is basically like this huge snow mountain. So we lived in a court, and it was a huge snow mountain. And if you've ever watched wrestling, Royal Rumble, it was just a bunch of boys throwing each other off the mountain and onto the streets, which sounds ridiculous and
But
unsafe,
so
but
much fun.
so much fun. And I was so happy to be part of your wedding, and
Oh
you're
yeah,
part of my
yeah,
wedding. And it was
yeah.
honestly, like, literally one of my best friends, lifelong. And this is a big honor. Now, I think as the show goes on, I'm not sure if we're going to be getting a bit more comfortable, where we're going to probably drop some Seinfeld references. So for those of you listening and you watch
Probably.
Seinfeld,
Yeah.
giddy up.
Yeah. And I'll say giddy
now,
up again because it's probably gonna happen.
now, before we give each other's top 5, I have one question. I didn't even
Hmm.
um, tell you about this one. So, but I wanted to ask you this. Okay. Um, what would be, I would say, like the main reason how you became a Batman fan?
Wow. Yeah. My earliest memories of Batman would be as a kid growing up. We would bug my dad to record the Batman TV series featuring starring Adam West. obviously as a kid we were born in the 80s, so late 80s early 90s for myself, not for Don, but for for myself. um that's the earliest memory I have of watching Batman or needing to see Batman, whatever, whatever that looked like. It was that TV show. And I remember asking my dad, to tape certain episodes for us so we would have it and we could watch it at any time, pop it in the VCR. That would be my earliest intro to Batman. And then as I started getting older, obviously, 89, we'll get into it, but 89 was obviously the first, major motion picture big Batman film reimagining with Tim Burton and obviously Michael Keaton. So that obviously catapulted me into the 90s and everything else that came with Batman after that.
Man, and I remember coming over, you'd have that VHS tape, and for some reason, I just remember being in the basement, and what always sticks out to me is the Diet Coke commercial.
Yeah, because
You know,
that Diet Coke commercial was before they played it before the movie had started.
yeah,
You remember that?
yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
man. And then not only that, I remember so you guys had a Nintendo, and on the Nintendo, like you guys had some stickers. One of them was the bat logo, the yellow oval.
Wow, you remember that?
I
That's
remember
crazy.
that.
Wow.
Ah.
Yeah.
And then well, I'm sure I won't mention it because I feel like you're going to mention this. So actually, okay. I'm not going to say it, and if it's not mentioned, then I'll bring it up when you bring up the movie.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, all right. So here's this how it's going to work. We're going to start at number 5 and then work our way up to number 1.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Um, Okay, this might be a little controversial, but I have for my number five, I listed Batman Returns in that spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, why Batman Returns? I'm kind of it is controversial, but I actually watch that movie every Christmas.
Well, yeah, one can argue that's a Christmas movie because it's set around the
Yeah,
holidays, right? Yeah.
yeah.
That's actually as of last year. You might have mentioned it to me, and as of last year, I put it into my rotation also. Um, I listed at number five. Reason being is because as we get later on into the Batman films, or like the whole Christopher Nolan aspect of it, those ended up being a little bit higher on my list. That's the only reason why
Mhm.
Batman Returns had ranked for me for number five. But when I look at it overall, around that time frame, obviously I'm a kid growing up in the '90s. It had so much like product and commercial, I would say commercialism around it, like the advertising and the promotion around it. You couldn't go to McDonald's without seeing something Batman. They had trading cards, they had sweaters and merchandise, and it was like it was everywhere. So that initially had ranked in my top because there was so much nostalgia for me, kind of around the film also. But for me, yeah, for me, I listed it as number five right now.
Man, that is a good pick. Like, and I always it was funny because I was listening. So I was in my car, and I don't know if you, Rick, do this or if anyone listening, but like whenever a Batman song comes on, I literally feel like I'm driving the Batmobile. And I was saying to my
Yeah.
wife, whenever I like, there's a song, like it's like any of the Batman chase songs, like the chase
Yes.
scenes.
Yes.
And if I'm going through leaves, like and then I look at my rearview mirror and they just flare up. Like I
Yeah.
literally feel like I'm in like the Batmobile. And for some reason today I was actually listening to the Bat Chase where um Penguin is in his like little fake toy Batmobile,
Yeah.
and that was the song that came up in my car. But like you feel the adrenaline, and you're like, okay, please, I hope I don't hit a red. I hope it's a green light. I hope it's a green light. So
Yeah.
like, just I don't know. It's like a little adrenaline. I love
Keep
that
that
film.
moment. Yeah. Keep that momentum going. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny
Michelle
that you
Pfeiffer's
mentioned.
name.
It's funny that you mentioned that just about driving and like listening to Batman film or scores. When the Dark Knight, either the Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises came out, I was working at a place where my work had underground parking, and I would listen to the score, like the Batman score, on repeat. I think what was it, Hans Zimmer? I think
Yeah.
did the majority of it. And
Yeah.
so many of those tracks are so like you can just instantly feel like you're in Gotham City or like you're in the Batman movie, right? And I remember every day I'd have to go to the underground parking, and when there no one would be like around or it was wide open, I literally would just go down that ramp and have that music playing, and I'd be like, oh, I feel like I was going into the Batcave, you know, because I was underground parking too. So I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah. So I totally
The-
get it.
I know exactly where, and it doesn't do they have a garage door there? That one,
Yes,
and it just
yes,
opens. You're like, open for me. You don't even
yeah,
need a remote to push
no,
it. That's so funny. Okay, after this, I'm gonna text you the. I have a Batmobile playlist.
oh sweet, yeah, send it
Yeah.
over.
Okay. My number five is a Chris Nolan film.
Hmm.
A lot of people, I guess, like they did not like this. I actually loved it. I find it very easy to watch. It's The Dark Knight
Hmm.
Rises.
Yep.
I know the villain in the movie Bane was controversial, Tom Hardy's take, but
Hmm.
man, like his voice is being reused, and it could be mocked in some way with the right now the TV series with Harley Quinn.
Hmm.
But like, him as a character was so powerful. And that fight scene between Batman and Bane, right in the
Yep.
middle of the film, it was pretty much like the climax where he broke the bat, right? There was
Hmm.
no music playing,
Yeah, it was
and
intense.
it was intense. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
and then as soon as he broke his back, he had his mask and he just dropped it. I remember being in the movie theater and I'm like, what the F? Like,
Yeah.
what just happened to Batman? Like, I didn't
Yeah.
like you see it even in. I remember a lot of the TV, the commercials, right? The TV spots, and I'm like, yeah, he has. There's a broken bat mask. Even like there was one of the movie posters that had the bat mask, and there's rain pouring on it, but it looked broken. Like,
Yes.
okay, like, but you kind of expect it because like there was the Nightfall storyline that happened in the comics years prior, and I was excited about Bane. Like, and that was the one thing
Hmm.
because I was like, okay, the one that they did in the Batman and Robin, like, was a terrible take.
Oh, horrible.
They
Yeah.
basically made him into into a dummy. And this one, he
Hmm.
was brilliant. He was intelligent. He was a force to be reckoned with. Yes, there are some movie holes. There's some like plot holes in there, but overall, like, and it- the performance of each of the actors actresses were top notch, right? And
Hmm.
Michael Caine, I remember you texting me because it pulled on my heartstrings where Michael Caine at the end of the movie where he thinks that Bruce Wayne is dead and he's crying, he's like, I'm sorry, and I failed you, and he's just like weeping, and I was like, man, that made
Hmm.
me shed a tear. Like,
Yeah.
and like he wasn't in the movie that long.
No.
Morgan Freeman again, also in the film. Like, um, the one that impressed me was Anne Hathaway. I thought her take on Catwoman, because she's got to live up to Michelle Pfeiffer's take on Catwoman, and what she did was, I thought, she's amazing as Catwoman, but in her own way. And you can compare, but like they're different, but same, but they're
Hmm.
different, right? Like it's not like
Hmm.
she just had a whip ready to go or like these claws ready to go. Like she didn't have any of that, but like she was Catwoman, and like her personality it was Catwoman. She was a jewel thief, right?
Hmm.
And it wasn't like she was necessarily bad, but she was good. And then you have Christian Bale, where his take on Bruce Wayne, where he was acting injured, like he just felt like he was broken. He felt like after the Dark Knight, like you can tell, like he was just it was almost like he was depressed, and that's how
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
film started, right? With him, like just in a cane, and then um yeah, and I feel like I'm missing so much, but even when he came back and it was like that first scene where it was pretty much like page for page where, when the Batman returns, like he comes back into like, his self, and then there's that car chase scene, and the cop tries to shoot at Batman. Like that's ripped right out of the Dark Knight Returns, right?
Hmm.
So like that scene itself, like I never get tired of that scene ever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, there's just so many good scenes, but yeah, that is my number five, The Dark Knight Rises.
But can I tell you
Oh,
something? That was originally
go
my number
for it.
five, and then I that was originally my number five, but then I changed it. Yeah, last minute I changed it. Yeah,
Last second.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow,
I feel like
man.
rankings
Okay.
are I feel like rankings are tough because at least for me, like from my perspective, when we look at the Scream franchise, I can someone asks, what's your favorite Scream film, or like what's your top three, or what's your like rank them. It depends on the day, really. Like I can have my top three for sure, but it depends. You love them in each individual way almost. Like they bring something different to the table, so it's hard to rank and hard to keep those rankings the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally. No, mine was the same, and I changed it. Yeah,
Which you guys did, you and Eric did a top. I think it was just like all the Scream movies, but like from
yeah.
last to best, or from like your least favorite to favorite, if I'm not mistaken. You guys had an episode.
Yeah, yes.
Definitely worth
You
tuning
can dive
into.
into the yeah. Thanks. You can dive into the archives and check that one out. But yeah, but we rank them and we give our reasonings why and everything from killer motive to reveal to all. We go through a big laundry list of stuff. But yeah, for sure, definitely
Yeah.
worth checking out if you feel like it.
Yeah, and then like speaking of flip flopping, like
Yeah,
my top two flip flop
yeah,
every single day. Like
yeah,
you'll see. Anyway,
yeah.
let's go to number four, Rick.
Okay. I rank number four for me. I put Batman Begins as number four.
Me too. It's so
You put it
good.
number four too.
Yeah.
Look
So
at
why
us.
number four?
Um, hmm. For me, it was in that spot because for us, it really okay for us in terms of when it came out. It really kicked off the new set of films for Batman, like the Batman whatever Batman was going to be. It really kicked it off for us, and I think before then we didn't have anything Batman. I think what was the last solo Batman movie? Was it Batman and Robin? And then it
Yeah.
was Batman Begins. Like there was a big chunk of time that was gone from that. So for me, I picked it as number four because it kickstarted another Batman franchise for us. And then also, I was at an age where, and I still remember this because this is a different Batman film, so we'll talk about it when we get there. But even when Begins was coming out, I remember you mentioning they're doing really great marketing for it. Like this is what they're doing, and you were showing me certain things about what they were doing online. But and then also that kickstarts into the next one that comes after that. But for me, that was the reason why it ranked it as number four. And then also from the storyline aspect, it really gave us an idea, an understanding of how Batman became Batman. Everything from we knew the story of the kid, we knew about what happened to his parents, obviously, but I really enjoyed how it went deep into him with Ra's al Ghul and his training, just martial arts, just everything that made him his fear, and then not giving into the fear, and diving into it, and looking at the bat and the symbol of it, just everything from that aspect, and how Christopher Nolan was able to put his stamp on it and make it dark again, but not too dark. I felt like it had like a really good balance of storytelling and grittiness. That's why it ranked number four for me.
Christopher
What about for
Nolan
you?
complete.
Yeah,
Yeah, Christopher Nolan completely changed like what superhero films were. Like we were kind of like, oh man, I think we were all walking on eggshells as to like, what's this Batman movie going to be? We didn't know what to expect. Like I remember seeing the preview, but they didn't show too much of this film. Meaning like in like you saw the TV spots, and they didn't give too much away. I just knew it was going to be
yeah,
more of an origin story. And
yes,
man, like I wasn't reading comics at the time, so I didn't really I knew Batman's parents got shot,
yeah,
and like I was well aware as to that, but like Chris Nolan, it took almost an hour, I think, for Bruce Wayne to become Batman. Like there is the training. It was like,
yeah,
they even tap into this psychological aspect as to like, um, you know, with him and his anger and like how he had to channel it, and then like where he went for training, and then he had to go meet Ducard, which eventually turns out to be Ra's al Ghul,
Mm.
and you know, and just separating the difference between like the, that no killing rule that Bruce Wayne stood firm on, and his line that it always sticks to me: "It separates us from them." And like, man, I love that line.
Yeah.
Um, Christian Bale, like, even his interpretation with, you know, two distinctly different voices, and then you have the
Mm.
Playboy millionaire, right? Like again, like there was three different types of characters in Bruce Wayne. Um, yeah, the take, and even Gotham, like it really did feel gritty. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know, like introducing a new character like Rachel Dawes, which I thought was,
Oh yeah.
it gave some good character depth,
Yeah.
and it did support who Bruce Wayne was, right?
Yes.
Like it gave you like some background, childhood background,
And
and she was
not
able.
only that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, not only that, with Rachel Dawes, you're able to see a different side of Bruce Wayne that we never really saw that much before. Like we saw the Playboy style Bruce Wayne, like you said, he always had dates, he always brought girls to events, whatever it was. But you didn't really see him really caring for that individual that he knew since childhood or since being younger. So I
Yeah.
felt like that kind of added just another layer to caring for Bruce Wayne a little bit more and making
Oh
Bruce
yeah.
Wayne a little bit more human. And then obviously they have the Batman alter ego. But I thought Katie Holmes did a really, really good job in that film. I feel like she brought that
Yeah.
character to life really well.
Yeah, I thought so too. Like, and then you have like these characters, like, Christian Bale was supported by some big hitters like Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman to be as part of the supporting cast, and Liam Neeson, which I
That's
know
huge.
everyone says there's like I don't know if this is an ongoing joke amongst everyone, but I just know that Morgan Freeman can read me a bedtime story any day because of his voice. And like, man, Liam Neeson's voice, like just like
Yeah.
the power and like what he says, I'm like, man, I believe him. I believe everything he
Yeah.
says.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just
Yeah.
so influential. And like if he was my teacher, I'm like, yes, sir. Okay, I'm listening. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so for him to be Ra's al Ghul, which again, never seen in a live action film, and you
Yeah.
introduced Ra's al Ghul, he was excellent. And he was, he played a bit of a role even in Dark Knight Rises.
Hmm.
Okay. I feel like I had another thing to add about Batman Begins, but I don't know. But there were some scenes, like even like how they introduced the Batmobile and how that came to be.
Yeah.
Does it come in black?
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
remember, well, when this movie came out, you were working at that time at a job that was in downtown Toronto. Do you remember that they had that Batmobile part of the marketing? They had it outside in downtown Toronto. Do you remember that? Because you sent me photos and videos.
So that was for the Dark Knight. The
Ah,
Batman
Dark
Begin.
Knight.
Yeah. That.
Yeah.
Oh man, I remember. And the Batmobile. The Batmobile was like, you think it's just this massive car, but
Yeah.
it's low to the ground, and it was different. But like, and you think it's just this massive, massive tank. It's big. The tires are ginormous, but it's not as
Yeah.
big as I thought it was in the film.
Mm.
But man, like, looks so cool. Yeah, just like it was in person. It's so cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll talk about the promotion of that film because I'm
Yeah,
sure
for
that's going to
sure.
be at the top of our list.
Yeah.
Okay, so both of us selected Batman Begins for number 4, and let me just add, I think that's probably, I'd say, one of the most important Batman films ever, right? Because that revitalized Batman, really. Like, and
100%.
you had a big name, which wasn't big at the time, but Christopher Nolan, he gave it a more grounded feel,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I thought that that was imperative to the Batman franchise. And
Yeah.
you know, they took a risk, right? Like it was a low
I,
budget. It was kind of low budget, and they took a risk on this guy who just made Memento. And they're like, okay,
yeah.
like let's try it.
Yeah. One could argue, like, if Christopher Nolan wasn't behind that film, we wouldn't have, could we have even gotten that kickstart of all these Batman films after that? Like, someone
Yeah,
could have came and just put their take on it, and it could have flopped. Like, it, it could have been a Batman and Robin. You don't know. So yeah, it's crazy to see what we got out of that.
I know. I know. Now we're on to number three. Oh man, I'm kind of curious what your top three is.
Yeah, this is hard. Top three was
Okay.
hard for me. Top
Yeah.
five was hard, but top three, narrowing it down to top three was hard. So I have, for my third pick, I've got Dark Knight Rises as number three.
Oh, you have Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah,
Love
Dark
it.
Knight
So
Rises
good.
number three. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Just my reasoning with that is because I think because we knew at that time that this was going to be the third and final from Christopher Nolan, right? Before it come out. I think that was common knowledge, right? That was the third and
Yeah.
the last one from Nolan's point of view.
Yeah.
So that's why I hit number three for me. It was kind of wrapping up that Christian Bale, sorry, as a Dark Knight and as Bruce Wayne. To your point, I loved Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. We had Bane. Um, there was a lot of different stuff within Dark Knight Rises that I enjoyed, and not only that, like to your point with Bruce Wayne and Batman, you really saw the struggle that he went through with Bane, and then also just everything that totally happened with him in all the other movies, and we knew that this was going to be okay. That this is the final climax. Bane breaks his back. He's seriously injured. All those things put together, but not only that, even the ending of it, the nod, the cafe in Europe, the nod, to Alfred. I still get goosebumps thinking about it because you're just like, yeah, and like the score is gonna happen. You're just like, yeah, like
Me
I love it.
too.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
great.
Chef's
It's
kiss.
great.
That was like
Yeah, oh
way to
yeah.
finish, wrap up that
What
franchise.
an ending.
Mwah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Chef's Kiss. Like, what an ending. Like, you couldn't have written a better ending like that. No words had to been said.
No.
You just let it play out. You see it happen, and it was incredible. So for me, that's why it's in the third for me.
Michael Caine with his Fernie Branca, his dream comes true. I'm a happy man. He got
Yeah,
his Fernie Branca in Italy, I'm sure. And Bruce
yeah,
Wayne is obviously like together with Selena, which I'm sure made a
yeah,
lot of Bat fans happy. And
mhm,
the other thing I forgot to mention was when, like, we forgot about this. Like, but Alfred said to Bruce, he's like, if you go on with this, I'm going to leave. And the next morning,
right,
doorbell rings. And then Bruce is looking around like, okay, Alfred. And then no one's getting the door, right?
yeah,
Like, and Alfred's gone,
yeah,
right? What's Bruce going to do? So,
yeah.
and he just got up and left. And it's like a life without Alfred. Kind of scary,
It's scary
right?
because he doesn't know a life of Alfred, right? After his parents die, it's Alfred really raises him, and that's the relationship you see with Bruce and Alfred, and you're kind of like, whoa, there's no Alfred there. So that's a great point that you put too. Is like you really see that relationship get strained a little bit and see the
Yeah.
peaks and the valleys in that. So that was incredible to see also.
Oh, yeah. Now, for my number three, I put Batman 89, starring Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, and oh my god, I was gonna say Vicky Vale,
Kim
Kim
Basinger.
Basinger,
Yeah.
who was
Wow, so
thrown
that's
into
your
the
number
movie.
three.
That's my number, and I have like honestly, it's so hard to choose. Like,
Yeah,
and
it's tough.
it's like every scene. I was just talking about it with I had my wife on, so and we had to rewatch. I'm like, oh my god, this movie's so good. And like you have Jack Nicholson, who is like that interpretation of Joker, like
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson just Jesus Marumba, just like off the whim. Just he's got these random lines. And if you rewatch it, you're just dying of laughter. And then like even like looking back, and then you're looking at like the bat suit, like how authentic and like it was like normally Batman's bat suit is never all black in the comics, but here it is,
Right.
right? His
Yeah.
Batmobile, legendary, and I'm sure you're gonna. I feel like this is gonna be in your number one or two. But anyway, and the score.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's my number one. I keep flip flopping even with the score, but I think it's my number one. Um, where Danny Elfman just knocks it out of the park. But the story was like fantastic, right? Like you got
yeah,
Bruce Wayne just starting off, um, and you kind of get that aspect of billionaire Bruce Wayne kind of acts like more of an aloof,
yeah.
and you have I'm gonna steal a line from Ryan Lauer, who calls Alfred a warm blanket, and he really is. Like you see him, you're like, oh, he's just so cozy. Like that little scene.
Yeah, it's comfort, right?
Yeah. And he
Yeah,
really is. His voice, you're like, oh man, this. And he's just telling the story to Vicky Vale right after their dinner in that long, huge room where they're like Bruce and Vicky are sitting on opposite sides of that long table,
pass the
and then he's
salt.
just telling, yeah, yeah, hey, could you pass the salt?
Yeah, what's that?
But
Yeah,
but yeah, and then Descent in the Mystery, where Batman's got Vicky in the Batmobile, and then you have that song playing, and then he's just cutting through the woods, going into the Batcave.
yeah,
Listen, Rick, when it's fall or autumn season, and
yeah.
you're in your car, you turn on Descent into Mystery, go over some leaves. I'm telling you, you'll feel like Batman.
I love it.
Yeah, but that was my number three, and that was like, God, it's just everything was so good. That I feel like that's my most watched Batman movie.
Yeah, I can see
I'm
that.
pretty sure. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's the one that you always go to, eh? Like if you want to do a rewatch or whatever, I can see that being watched majority of the time.
Oh, so easy, so
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
Like you know exactly what's going on. You probably know every line. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, but yeah. So I think we're on number two.
We're on number
Oh,
two.
oh man,
We're getting down
number.
to it.
So now, before we okay, wait, no, go ahead with your number two, and then right before we get into number one, then I'll
Mhm.
ask you a question. Yeah, go ahead for your number two. What do you
Okay.
got?
So number two, I ranked The Dark Knight in my number two spot.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah. And it was really hard not to give it number one, but I'll tell you the reasoning. My number one reasoning will make sense once I explain it. But for me, Dark Knight was number two, and like I said, it could possibly flip flop between one and two for me. But it was just such a fantastic film. Heath Ledger, I don't care who you are, but when it was announced that Heath Ledger was going to play the Joker, so many people were like, Heath Ledger, the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You? Like that's how we knew him from. Like we knew him from that teen rom-com. We're like, really? And a lot of people had that same thought. But then Batman fans know, the same was thought through with Jack Nicholson being cast as the Joker also, and people were just like, hey, there's a vision in place here. There's a reason why he's cast as a Joker. I would trust, and I remember even saying, I think I might have tweeted it back then. I remember saying something on some social media platform to being like, trust Nolan and trust the process. Like he won't steer us wrong. Like just have faith. Like, oh, sorry. The same what I was going to say was comparing it to when Michael Keaton was announced as Batman. There was a huge uproar. People didn't want Michael Keaton as Batman. They're like
They
Michael
didn't want
Keaton.
Mr. Mom.
Yes, exactly. So
Right.
that's what I kind of like lean towards it, and that performance that Heath gave, man, it's right up there with Jack Nicholson's Joker for me. It introduced Joker in a more sadistic way. You kind of really saw the kind of I don't want to say gang mentality through him, but really that famous line of Alfred, some men just want to see the world burn. There's no other purpose behind certain things that he's going to do. He just wants to see that chaos and know that he was behind it. So for me, his performance was incredible. And even a way that he can tell a story, like, you want to know how I got these scars? He's telling that to Rachel Dawes when he crashes a party. Like, it's not even a big,
Yeah.
crazy, only Joker scene. It's just happens to be part of a monologue in this party scene. and he delivers, and you're like hanging on to every word. So for me, The Dark Knight on that sense is ranked number two, and also obviously we see the return of this is the sequel from Batman Begins, so we already know, okay, we can trust Christopher Nolan on this. We like Christian Bale as Batman. We have all our teeth in, and I feel like this was one of the movies where for a sequel, it was one sequel where people were ready for, and they were like, yeah, give me more, and let's take it up a notch, and it delivered. Yeah, it delivered. So for me, that's my number two.
So, can you describe? Because we went to the movies together to watch that, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay. Can you
yes.
describe like what it was like going into the theater and then entering?
Yeah,
Like, do you remember?
yeah, I remember. So we went opening. I don't know if it was opening night, but I know we went opening weekend 100%. Like I remember we went as soon as it came out, and I still remember sitting there and before the opening credits with was it Blue Flames? Was it that one with the Batman logo was slowly starting to slowly see the Batman logo? I might be
Yeah.
getting it confused with Dark Knight Rises, but I think it was Dark Knight. And you had that kind of ominous, just a tone like the as it starts to go, and it was kind of like you're like shit, something big's gonna happen, and we're not even at the opening scene yet. So I
Wow.
remember thinking that and just being kind of anxious, excited, but like, oh shit, like it's happening and we're gonna be on a ride for the next 2 hours, whatever the runtime was. So I definitely remember like going to the theater, getting tickets. I remember, we went together. We went with a big group of friends. So there was a couple, depending on the seats. There was because this wasn't back in the day where you had to select your seats prior to going. You just got a ticket and you said a prayer and hopefully you got a good seat.
Yeah.
So there was quite a few of us. There was a lot of us that went, but we were in little pockets throughout the theater. So I remember that. And I remember where I sat, it was kind of more towards the front. But I remember sitting there kind of slouched down. I didn't care because I was watching Batman and I was just like engulfed with the screen. So that's what I remember like going to see it. It was a big deal. It was like one of those movies early on where like, no, we got to watch it as soon as it comes out. Like, we got to
Oh
go
yeah.
see it. Yeah.
I remember. Like, and it's funny. So that is the one movie where I'm like, w- when we went in, because and we had, yeah, you're right. We had a huge group of us, and it was
Mhm.
just like try to occupy as much. I know we were sitting with together, but like it was two rows that we occupy. I'm
Yeah.
pretty confident we had over 10 people with us.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I remember just going in and like luckily I remember sitting kind of close to the middle. But like yeah, we were a bit closer to the front. I do remember
Yeah.
that, and I was just blown away. And the crowd, like everyone was just jacked up. And I remember waiting for this film, and we were in line for over an hour. I remember it. I remember having to go
I
up the
don't remember
stairs, and
waiting
we
that
had
long.
to. I for sure. I remember. I remember
Yeah.
who I was with because we held the line. Actually, we actually waited. I was with a couple. I think you came just a bit later
Hmm.
because we were like, okay, we'll go early just to try to get to the front of the line to get good seats. Right. That's what
Right.
happened. And a lot of us just kind of, you guys kind of came to where we were. And I just remember the energy. Like it was, I'll be honest, I don't remember the energy being like that ever again in a movie
Yeah.
theater. For me, my personal experience. Like
Yeah.
and like I'm sure like Endgame, Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame probably came close to that or probably surpassed it, but I don't know, man. Like it was just a different feel. Oh
Yeah.
man, but anyway.
Yeah. You
Uh
could, it was almost, when people say it's palpable, like you could feel it in the air. You could feel it in
yeah.
the air before.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally.
Oh
100%.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
crowd was just like, let me show you let me what is that? Let me show you my magic trick. And then
Oh,
boom, right?
yes.
He just
Yes.
slammed his head into that pencil, and we all just went nuts. Like I've
Yeah.
never seen it was like being at like a sports game where people are just going wild. Like they were just like
Yeah.
and laughing. Like they laughed.
Yeah.
But
Even stuff like that, like with the Joker, even then when he sets up also later on in the movie when they had the parade, and we find out it was a big ruse because they wanted to play that Commissioner Gordon was was gone, but it was a big setup. Remember at the end, it ended up being like a big setup.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah,
remember when they tied up, they had all the, so Batman, was it, no, Bruce, he had his motorcycle. He wasn't Batman, he was Bruce Wayne. And he was going to check those surrounding buildings because they figured out which
yeah,
ones they might have been at. But do you remember when they had like, they had all the security guards, or sorry, the cops were tied up? And then you figure out, oh
yeah.
shit, the cops that are there with the snipers are actually Joker's henchmen. And then there was a timer and a lift of the shade, and then the shot went off, and Joker's in the crowd. You're like, oh, even that scene alone was crazy tense. So
Yeah.
yeah, so there's many moments throughout watching the theater where you're like, I'm glad I watched that first initial viewing, like of seeing the movie. Glad I watched it at the theater because just the feel alone during some of those scenes were incredible.
That's the big thing with theaters, right? Like just can't replicate it at home as much as it
No,
is. It's nice to be in the comfort of your own home and
yeah,
just like make your own popcorn and let's watch a movie. Boom. But
yeah.
like the theater experience is something just slightly different. Okay, my number two, I'm telling you, I flip flopped even during the day. So here we go. Like, and I know in the previous podcast, like I was like, yeah, like this movie's my number one, but right today's where it's number two, but by a hair.
Oh,
Who knows what tomorrow changes? The
right.
Batman, the Batman 2022,
Oh,
Matt
yeah,
Reeves. I love this film.
yeah,
Matt Reeves
yeah.
nailed it, and it's the first Batman film. Um, when it got there's so many aspects I love about it. It just felt dark. I've said this before, where it was
Hmm.
gritty. It was always raining. You had the Riddler, and you had a different interpretation of the Riddler. And
Yeah,
regardless of what people say, the guy's wearing green. He's got a check mark. He's saying riddles. He's the Riddler. But to
yeah,
throw in a horror aspect of it,
yeah,
um, was top notch. I
yeah.
just love watching like that interrogation scene was something else between Bruce Wayne and Paul Dano's Edward Nashton. So
Mhm.
and the way Robert Pattinson, the way he acted with just his eyes, right?
Yeah.
Very unique. I mean, he was very Keaton esque, if I would say so myself. But he didn't have a lot of lines in the movie, and you
Mm.
see a lot of Batman. You don't see a lot of Bruce. I think there's like two or three scenes with Bruce Wayne in it, right? His relationship with Alfred is very different. It's a different interpretation. It's very frayed, and the movie is grounded, more grounded than the Chris Nolan films. And I never
Mm.
thought I would say that. And what we got was, to me, it was a masterpiece. It was a true film that I feel like moviegoers that appreciate film and Batman fans alike can love it. And like, Matt Reeves is a Batman fan. So he included quite a few comics in there, like The Long Halloween to start things off. Batman Year One had another influence. I think Earth One also had a bit of an influence on there. And those are just a few that he took from comic and put it right into that film. And I don't know, like even the Batmobile, I've always pictured to be a muscle car, and I love the Batmobile. I love it.
Yeah,
It just even that chase scene between him and Penguin
yeah,
was like, it gets my adrenaline going. Like I love watching. I would crank up my sound bar with the bass and pull. Man, I could just I don't know. I could replay that over and over. The Penguin, by the way. So Colin
yeah,
Farrell,
yeah,
my God, the way he portrayed Penguin and the little bit he got, um, man, he was so funny. He was the highlight, in my opinion.
yes.
Where I walked out, and I remember Victoria, my wife, saying, "I hope they make a Penguin show," and
Wow, she called
I
it.
she called it. She called it. She was like, "I hope they make a Penguin show." And when it got released that they are, I'm like, "You won't believe this, but look." And I showed her my phone, and she doesn't know anything about Batman. Like she's just a
Yeah,
fan, just like any general audience, right? She just goes, she appreciates movies, and voila, right? And she walked out loving the film, and that's how I try to judge a movie too. Is like the general audience. Like I'm hardcore, and I get certain references, but how does
yeah,
someone like a general audience member like like my wife, how do you like it? Right. And she
Right.
liked the suit. I know that the suit was a little controversial because it was like, it looked like it was handmade. Uh,
Hmm.
but even that interpretation, I appreciated,
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne not being in the Batcave and having it like he has his own cave, but he's at Wayne Tower again.
Yeah.
I thought it was different, but I loved it. He was grounded, and I feel like out of all the superheroes, the one superhero that can be grounded and relatable is Batman, and that's what makes
Yes.
him everyone's favorite. I don't know
100%.
the the even like the riddles, like the marketing behind that film. So El Rata or Rata Alada, like that was kind of cool just to have like those riddles and you had to solve it. That was fun to do as well, just to
Yeah.
lead up. But I don't know. I'm excited to see what Matt Reeves has in store for Batman Part Two and the Penguin series coming up. Like I have no
Yeah.
idea what to expect. But it kind of has like a mob feel. Penguin
Yeah.
feels a little bit more like Tony Soprano.
Is there a date for the Batman sequel film? Yeah.
Yep. It is September 4th. Oh wait, sorry. Oh my gosh. So Penguin September 4th. I think
Yeah.
or no, is Penguin I'm gonna have to double check. Okay. Batman Part 2 is October 4th, 2026.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was 26. Yeah. I just wasn't sure if it was 25 or 26, but I was thinking 26. Yeah. And like, kudos
Yeah.
to Victoria, to your wife, man,
And
for calling that. I can't believe she called
let's
the
see. I'm
Penguin
just
the show. And to
searching.
your point, also, like, he did a fantastic job as the Penguin. Yeah, he did
Oh
a
my god.
fantastic job as the Penguin. I
Unbelievable.
remember you telling
Like
me about the film, and then I watched it. But even though you told me he was Penguin, I remember at the beginning, like when I first saw him on the screen, I'm like, where's where is he? Like I didn't realize that was him because I didn't watch any I don't know anything on socials about it or anything. So I'm like, wow, I'm like he did a really good like the makeup team, like that's him. Like I was like, whoa, I was blown away.
yeah. I was blown away
Yeah.
too. You couldn't recognize him. But yeah, there's
No,
so much,
fantastic
so
makeup
many
job.
aspects to even the score about that film, like again, and
Mhm.
something in the way, man, like that's on my workout playlist. I love it. It just puts me in like, and it's not even like it's a pump up song. It's just puts you in a mood where you're like, I'm gonna get these weights and I don't know, I'm gonna go ham on them.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now before we get into number one,
Numero uno.
I didn't tell you about honorable mentions, but do
Hmm.
you have one
That
as
the
like what
Batman
would
was
be your
mine.
number?
I have mine was the Batman. That was my honorable mention. Because again, it's like another take on okay, let's look at another way to reboot this franchise. And it was a great job. It was gritty. It was dark. They did a different, fresh take to Bruce Wayne, and I feel like they show Bruce Wayne younger than what you're used to seeing Bruce Wayne. Also, I really loved Catwoman or Selena Kyle
Yeah.
in this one. And to your
Gosh.
point with the Riddler, um, I was going back to Catwoman. I love how she's like working at the bar. You see how she's intertwined with Penguin, or like loosely like connect the dots. Like he's at the club that she works at. Like, and there's a way that connect these dots. How these things like one like the other. But also the Riddler. They, I just didn't think you could make him that. Um, that just I don't want to say crazy is not the right word, but just almost like that horror element to it, like you said, like that's almost like so you're going to the mind of like almost like a serial killer in a way. Like things were
Oh
very
yeah.
strategically thought out, but when you see him, you're like, okay, he's not cracking jokes and laughing and just saying these little riddles to get Batman. He wants to put people's lives in danger. He wants to ruin the city, and he wants, he's almost. I this is gonna get a little bit controversial, but it's almost like he's almost. I wouldn't say he's up there with Heath Ledger's Joker, but it's almost a sense of where like you can see almost the two reflecting in each other, where it's like okay, they just want damage, they want to see that world burn, they want to destroy people in the process, they just want to get what they want. So that was my honorable mention, is because all of those things combined. But I thought the actor to play the Riddler did a fantastic job, and I like that they showed Riddler in that light.
Yeah. He wanted revenge on like anyone that did anything wrong. He almost saw himself as a
As
hero. And that's why I guess why he thought
yes,
like, you know, he thought Batman was on his side, right? He thought
yeah,
as himself as a hero, but he's like Batman's like, no, I don't kill. I'm nothing like you.
right, right,
And then good point about Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, her take again. I
yeah,
mean, what more can you say? Like, the way she even moved was just that's Catwoman.
yeah.
That is it. And
I
like,
feel like she.
the way
Yeah, go
no, I
ahead.
was gonna say just the way she was like, she was fighting her kicks, like it just I don't know. It just felt like that's how Catwoman would be. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Year one.
100%. Um, I would even say too. I feel like she brought the sexiness back to Catwoman.
Hmm.
Not to knock Anne Hathaway. I feel like she did a fantastic job. With her training and getting into shape in that sense to play Catwoman. But Kravitz, I feel, did a fantastic job bringing that kind of mystique back to
Yes.
Catwoman and that sexiness back to her that we saw back in the day with Michelle Pfeiffer and even in the shows like Eartha Kitt and Julie Newmar in the Batman show in the 60s. They were sexy as Catwoman and they had that flirtatiousness with Batman, right?
That's how they lured him
Um,
in, right? It was just
right.
like, it was flirtatious and that's how they got him. But like even in this case, like I don't think she necessarily like Batman didn't really
I
yeah,
don't think
like
there
I
was any
agree.
really flirting with
No,
them two, was there? No.
no, like you could tell that they were attracted to each other, but it wasn't like she
Yes.
was using it against him,
Right. There was just
right?
that attractiveness, and that's where it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and to your point, I totally forgot the majority of that movie is shot in the rain. It's dark and raining.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it though.
Yeah. No,
Um
it's great.
yeah, no, I know. The what was I gonna say? I don't know, but I did like the horror aspect of it. Like I did feel like they had like, and for Batman Part Two to be released in October, I'd be like, yeah,
Yeah.
that feels right. That just feels right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That time of year too. Yeah. It's fantastic.
yeah. So my honorable mention was Batman Forever, and
Ah,
man, yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to choose Returns or Forever,
yeah.
and I thought Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Speaking of Riddler, he was awesome. He was, you know,
Yeah.
I thought that Chris O'Donnell as Robin. I thought he did actually an excellent job. Val Kilmer, given for what he did, I thought did a good job. The story was very simple. It was a different tone.
Mhm.
Um, looking back, I grew to hate the film, and then now I look at it very fondly. And I was
Yeah.
actually rewatching it the other day, and you know the Batmobile was pretty sweet. I remember like even the story. Listen, it's not top notch. It's not going to be anything groundbreaking. It was a good popcorn film. And
Yeah.
everything you want, the bright lights, you get Robin, you get Dick Grayson, like, you know, the acting between Chris O'Donnell and like the arguments between Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne, like you did feel like there was like a little bit of tension. Like Dick Grayson was mad at the world. Um,
Yeah.
and, you know, when Dick goes and saves Batman in that scene where, I think it was Two Face that just shot like this like rocket launcher, and then you got the hand come in and Dick pulls him up, and then afterwards they're in the cave and what the hell you think you're doing? Right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty solid interpretation, right? I don't know. I thought that even the bat nipples get a little bit of
Oh,
controversy,
right.
but besides that, I think the Black Panther suit like that Batman had, and even Robin's suit,
Mhm.
look pretty sweet. I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was the marketing. Like, God, for me, I got some of the Batman Forever toys and the McDonald's mugs. I don't know if you remember them.
The clear
Uh,
ones?
the clear ones.
I
Oh
always
God.
wanted one of those.
Oh man, it was I have the set. I love them, and there's
Oh,
so much detail. Go online if you go online and just search like the amount of detail, and they're made in France. It's fine China.
no way.
Listen, you can put it in your display. But yeah, that's my honorable mention. Okay,
Well, that's a good
you
one.
ready? Oh, yeah. So number one, you ready?
I'm ready.
Is this number one? Okay, go for it. Give it to us.
So my number one is Batman '89. That's my number one.
Uchi Mama.
And for reason why I ranked it number one for me is there's a lot of nostalgia around Batman '89. Again, it was the first real motion picture Batman film. Not looking at the Batman TV show doing a film. This literally was a film. Tim Burton being on the helm of it, the darkness of it. But for me, when it came out in '89, I was 6 years old. And obviously, I don't remember seeing it in the theater. I don't think my parents took me to go see it in the theater, but I remember getting the tape. So whenever the tape came out, months later, whatever, half a year later, I remember getting it. I remember the black cassette tape with the gold shiny Batman logo on it. That's all there was. And my brother and I wore out that VHS tape so much because we watched it over and over and over again. We loved it. We loved it as kids. You have Jack Nicholson as the Joker, amazing job. It just everything with it, and then also the nostalgia around it, like you said, the marketing around it. The I think I remember having this was Batman Returns though because I got older, but and I could go and get my own stuff. But I remember having a Batman Returns black sweater, and it was a Batmobile that like changed into something else, a Batmobile, and then the back I think it might have been a motorcycle or the bike or something. But I remember just the whole marketing campaign around Batman '89 was absolutely massive. The toys. I still remember having a Batman figure where his belt he had a retractable. Um, it was like a retractable little, almost like
Like the
I
grapple
have this
gun?
thing right here. No, like yeah, like my work. Like what do you call these things again? I don't remember
Yeah.
the name of it. You have like a badge, and you can like. Oh my
Yeah.
god, why am I
It's
blanking on this
retractable. It's like
name?
a string.
Like a retractable, like a belt clip or whatever. But he
Yeah.
had that on the toy, and you could clip it and then make him like shoot off. Still remember that. And then I also had it was gifted to me. It was a gift. I don't know if it was a birthday or Christmas or what. But I also remember getting a Batmobile phone.
That's
And
it.
yeah,
That's what I was gonna mention because you guys
was
talked.
that
Your
it?
brother. Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think okay. I think my brother might have gotten it as a gift for himself, or maybe for both of us. But
It's
I
time
grew
to
up.
steal
I'm
it
a
from him.
yeah, I still have it. He still has it
Oh, you.
at home. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll have to find it and I'll have to send you a picture. But we had the Batmobile phone, and back then it really was just like it looked like it was the Batmobile, but you flipped it on its back, and that's where the keypad was, and literally was just a button you had to press to hang up. So when you put it flat, obviously it was hung up and the phone was there. It's not like I had a base that you can put it on, but I still remember when the phone rang, the lights on the Batmobile lit up, the yellow lights. It
That is so
was it was
sick.
awesome. Yeah. So for me, this is really number one for me because during that time, the nostalgia of it, the whole the whole commercialization behind it, the toys, being in that age group, wanting the toy, everything Batman related. I also had a Batman birthday cake one year. And this was like not now where you have it like this crazy screen printed on it. No, like you had to like pipe the icing like it was a blue and gray Batman. So for me, Batman '89, that's my number one, just for all those reasons. It brings me back to a time where I just love.
And it's so easy to watch. Like you just throw it on, and Michael
Yeah,
Keaton, Jack Nicholson, Kim Basinger, like the acting was
yeah.
phenomenal. And you know, going back to the toy, just a side note, don't you like? Wouldn't you want a house number just so people call that bat, like
Oh
your
yeah,
just your phone, so you can pick up from that Batman phone and be like, "Hello." Like
yeah.
I don't know, it'd be so cool. Man,
I
I
gotta
love
find that, but
'89.
I know my brother's got it. I gotta steal it from him. I gotta maybe add it to like my desk collection here, where I have all my pop culture little things that I got. I gotta add that to here. You gave me an idea. That's a good ad.
The question is your brother going to give it up?
Oh, he's probably it's in a box somewhere. He probably won't even.
Yeah.
I'll just go take between you and I. I'll just go take it. He won't even
If he's
notice.
listening,
Yeah, which
hey,
he will
Marco,
be.
you're a great guy.
Mark, your
So,
your phone's gone.
um, oh man, but yeah, Batman '89, man, just and
Yeah,
Batmania, that everything that surrounded it, and it was
yeah,
groundbreaking. Like Michael Uslan is the executive producer. That guy took 10 years just to try to make this movie, and when it came out, it didn't even disappoint. It was like everything just kind of aligned, and this was the biggest. Like without Batman '89, I this is the most important Batman film ever made, in my opinion.
yeah.
Without Batman '89, nothing else is remade or made ever. Like
Agreed.
it's
Agreed.
and God, it's so good. Like everything about that movie, the suit, like you just look at it and you're like, wicked. It
Yeah.
just brings a
Yeah.
tear to my eye. Happy tears.
Did you know with the suit? Did you that tidbit that came out recently? It was a couple months back, but it was just making the rounds on social media on Twitter. But you may have known this beforehand. But you know that Michael Keaton wore Jordans?
Oh
Those are
yeah.
black Jordans with the bat suit.
Oh yeah. Like and
Yeah,
he's
that's crazy.
and he's like, yeah, and I still have them.
Oh, he
I
still has
saw
them.
that.
That's
Oh
amazing.
yeah. He still has them. Like he still kept the shoes and
Wow.
there you go. Michael
Yeah.
Keaton. He's so cool. Even when he
Yeah.
reprised his role in The Flash, like,
Yes.
man, it was like riding a bike for him. Like you watch, you're like,
So
it
good.
took nothing just to go get right back into Batman mode.
Yeah.
Okay. My number one is The Dark Knight. And
Yeah.
I think it was like, in all honesty, I echo everything you said. So, like, from the theater experience to the acting, Heath Ledger. I remember reading Batman on Film .com, and when he released like the Jet Raimi, he was the one who released the news to everyone, and I was like, okay, well, who is this? And I was working downtown Toronto, and he I had to quickly search who's this Heath Ledger, and I'm like, oh my god, 10 things I hate about you, where like
Mhm.
my cousins all loved Heath Ledger, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. So let's just see, right? Like I didn't really have much of a judgment because we had Chris Nolan, right? I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay. And it wasn't until the first trailer dropped, and it wasn't there was just a voice trailer where you hear
Yeah.
Heath Ledger's voice, and you could probably hear my dog in the background. And
Mhm.
no, but you hear Heath Ledger's voice, and I just remember blue beams going through, and it's like, starting tonight, people will die. I'm a man of my word.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my god, this is gonna be wicked. You didn't have to
Yeah.
see anything. You're just like, I'm amped. And then
Yeah.
you got to see, like, then they started the marketing promotion and leading up to that film, and you got the first look of Heath Ledger's Joker,
Yeah.
and we were blown away.
Yeah.
At first, I'm not sure we all how we felt, but because it was caked on makeup and like a big smile, but it was different. And
Mhm.
just to see, and oh my god, and then finally the trailer came out, and that got people hooked. I think everyone seeing that trailer knew that they were in for something special. It's
Yeah.
no secret. Heath Ledger won an Oscar for that film, right?
Yeah.
And well deserved. It was not. He didn't get it because he passed away.
No,
Sadly,
no,
it was
he would have
because he
got that
earned it.
either way. Yeah,
Oh
a
yeah,
1000%. Yeah.
like, and there's a reason why The Dark Knight is so highly acclaimed because and so highly regarded is because of Heath Ledger. Not to discount anyone else, but Heath Ledger, I thought, just catapulted it to number one. And that film got a billion. It made $1 billion, right? So, and a lot of people wanted to see Heath's performance, right? Everyone was fantastic in the way they performed, but Heath just had a different take on the Joker. And for whatever reason, I feel like we are all enamored by the Joker as a character, and we all want to see a different take. And if you nail it, people will come. Like, you got Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie, the first one, which we went to go see as well,
Yeah.
made $1 billion.
Yeah.
And this is just based on a villain. So
Yeah.
the way Heath came out, and I just remember that film. It just felt like a ride, and there was no breaks. Like, the movie started off with the bank robbery, and
Yeah.
it was like we're off to the races, and there was no
Yeah.
stopping it. The final scene, sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded. Like, oh my god, how
Yeah.
many times I watch it on YouTube? Like, I love
Yeah.
that scene, and
Yeah.
the way, like, it's kind of like that, the ending where Gordon is talking to his son, and the kid's like, he didn't do anything wrong, and it's like,
Yeah.
he's not the hero
We need,
we need,
or
but
what
the
was it?
hero,
Yeah.
is it the hero we need, but the hero we deserve,
We
or is not
deserve.
the
Yeah.
something like that. I'm butchering it and I'm embarrassed, but like, and then he just nailed it out the park, and then you see him like go onto his motorcycle and take off, right?
Oh, so good.
And like, even, Aaron Eckhart kind of gets
Yeah.
forgotten about, I think, in his
Hmm.
performance as Two-Face, because
Yeah.
he was so believable. He had a portrayal of, Harvey Dent, confident man, and then you have the other side of who he is, as, that angry side, angry Harv,
Yeah.
come out, rightfully so. No
Yeah.
one listened to him,
Yeah.
and you had Joker take away his, you know, his love of his life, the love of his life,
Yeah.
in Rachel Dawes, and then, all of a sudden, and then his face is burnt half to hell, like it was,
Mhm.
and even the
Yeah.
way it looked, I'm like, oh my god, like,
Yeah.
freaky,
Yeah.
but look, it's very believable. And I
Oh
just
yeah.
remember, and then there was the marketing. I remember sitting in your house, we were watching wrestling, and I was like, and again, I was on batmanonfilm.com, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my god, we have to call this number. And all of a sudden, I think it was James Gordon, you remember that? And it's
Yes.
like, we got to help him in his investigation, and then there's like these
Yeah.
newspapers
Yeah.
that got to receive in the mail, and there's like posters of, I believe, in Harvey Dent with like a
Yes.
pin, and oh,
Yes.
the marketing. And then to bring up is the Batmobile. Yeah, it was made its rounds around, I think, North America, and definitely made it downtown Toronto. And I was just like, okay, like, let's take a look at this. And it was just,
Yeah.
man, they hooked me. It was so good,
Yeah.
and then rightfully so. Like, that film was just, with Christopher Nolan, that guy nailed it out of the park.
Yeah, yeah, he did. To your point, the marketing behind that was incredible. And to your point, like the newspapers that you got, and this was back in the day. Like there was no, I think social media. There was only Facebook, and I think Twitter might have been around. But it's like we don't use it how we do now, where you'll like just DMing wasn't a thing. Like sliding into the DMs wasn't a thing. So it's not like you would have to like message the company and be like, oh yeah, send me this. No, you went on that website they built, you put in your information, they mailed you that stuff. I think you even got like I believe in Harvey Dent. Do you get like bumper stickers also? Like you got a
Yeah.
lot like the newspaper clippings. You got a lot of stuff, and they did
Oh,
an
God.
amazing job with it. Um, to that point, also, do you remember that year because the movie was such a big deal? I think it was the following Halloween. Do you remember? So we all this is the time where we were like during our clubbing days, and Halloween's always a big clubbing time. You go, you dress up, and you go clubbing. Do you remember that part of some of our friends group? We had a buddy that went as the Joker, but in the nurse outfit,
Oh
but with
yeah,
the Joker face. I
it's
went
so
as Harvey
different.
Dent, as dark as Two Face with the bird, or whatever.
it,
And
it
then
was so
I think we had someone as
believable.
Batman. Yeah, but it was that just goes to show you how much of a big deal it was. And so and no matter where you go, even to this day, you'll see some type of variation of Heath Ledger's Joker
Oh
at
yeah,
any type of Halloween party. You'll still see it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And going forward, I mean, a lot of Jokers, like, whenever there's an interpretation of the Joker, I feel like they're going to be compared. Heath was going to be compared against Jack Nicholson. Now it's like,
yeah,
whoever's Joker next is going to be compared to Heath,
yes,
and
and maybe
he set the bar
Joaquin
high.
Phoenix.
He did
Yeah,
a good job. Yeah, or Joaquin Phoenix, right?
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it was funny because the makeup artist was a family friend, I believe, and
yes, yes,
of the guy, one of our friends, and he was the one who dressed up as Joker, and then she did your face,
yeah.
and oh my, it looks so real. It's so freaky, but it was so good. Like everyone that sees that picture is like, oh my god, it looks amazing. Oh
Yeah,
man,
she did an
that's a good.
incredible job.
Oh yeah, and it was good
Incredible
because
job.
you
Yeah.
even got to use the pin. I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
I
I was gonna
believe
say
I did.
I borrowed the pin from you, and I wore like the white dress shirt. I had the pin on, a red tie, and then I had half the face and whatever. So yeah, the marketing stuff came in handy.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah,
Oh, that movie is so good. All of them.
so
Like
good.
I love them. All of our top fives. Oh man. But
Yeah,
yeah, man. And and it's funny because like you think about The Dark Knight, and I was saying this recently. Like that's a movie that you sit and you respect and you enjoy it. You can't just like
yeah.
it's one that you just can't play in the background. You got to
No,
just sit and appreciate it and just like let it all soak in. And
talking
it never
about
gets old.
talking about talking about that sitting and appreciating it. I just got back from vacation. On the flight home, was there not The Dark Knight available? It's under classics in this airline. There are a lot of good movies on there, and I'm like, yes, I will watch The Dark Knight. Fantastic, because like you
uh,
said, where am I going? I'm watching it, and it was so good to watch so many years, later, and it still holds up, and you're still on the edge of your seat watching that movie.
it really does hold up, eh? Like it's
Yeah.
just, I know that's what I feel like the Batman is going to as well. Where
Mhm.
it's going to hold up in years, but like that said, so is Batman '89. You're watching it, you're like, this can take place in any era.
Yeah.
So right on. Well, Rick, I guess that's going to bring us right to the end of our show. Man, let me tell you, what an honor it was to have you on. Uh,
Let me tell you, it was great being on talking Batman with you and going down memory lane and some of our childhood memories growing up and just the whole nostalgia around it. And let me tell you, this weekend, because as we're recording now, it's during the week, I'm going to watch a Batman film. I don't know which one yet, but you got me in the mood. I'm going to
oh,
watch a Batman film.
okay, you have to text me and let me know. Let me
I'll
know.
let you know which one I watch. Yeah.
Maybe I'll watch it too. I just put on Forever, but I'm like, I'm probably 15 minutes in, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna see that through. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So with that being said, why don't you plug away and
Yeah.
tell people if they don't know to find you, where they can find you.
Yeah, so if you want to follow me on Twitter, my personal account is at the slickest Rick, and then my podcast, Scream Along Podcast, you can follow us on Instagram. The handle there is Scream Along Podcast, and then on Twitter also you can follow us at Scream_along. However, I will preference to say we do majority of our social media is mostly on Instagram. So if you were to follow any one of us. Any one of the social media platforms, definitely go ahead and follow Instagram. We're more active on there. We're posting stuff about Scream, but obviously we're posting stuff about other horror stuff that's coming out. For example, I know what you did last summer. Reboot just got confirmed with cast. We're still waiting on to see if Jennifer Love Hewitt or Freddie Prinze Jr. is going to return, but that just got unveiled just the other day. So we kind of we share in our stories, but that's where you can follow us. And again, listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify by searching Scream Along. And dive into the archives. We've had some good shows, some good interviews with some people within the Scream community. And there's more, there's bigger things to come this year with guests and what we've got planned.
Man, like even between you and your co-host Eric, there was a time I was working out, and so one thing, I don't know if I've shared this in the podcast. I'll listen to podcasts while I work out. Here
Yeah,
and there, I'll listen to music, but mostly it's podcasts. And I was listening to yours, and the banter between you and Eric, I laughed out loud, and it's like one of those things that you're like you don't expect to happen,
yeah,
and but like it's honestly it's worth a listen. It's so fun. Like it's honestly such a fun podcast. You got all your news, and then you got your insights, and then you guys do some film reviews of, so like I
yeah,
remember you guys even went to go watch Halloween, I think, and there's some
Yes.
good insight there. But even to what's going on with the Scream franchise, because I'm like, you updated me. I was listening to it, and I know what's going on. It is very interesting that we have a big character, hello Sydney, coming back.
Yeah.
So thanks for the update. That's a big fish that they got back. So
Yeah.
really
So
interested to
it's
see
gonna.
where that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be cool to see what happens with that and what happens all within Scream 7. So, yeah, if that's up your alley and you love Scream and you love anything horror thriller related, appreciate the follow and appreciate the listen.
Yeah. And as for me, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Beyond Bat Signal. Or if you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to shoot me an email at beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com. And please tell your friends. Rate and review the show, as it will go a long way. And subscribe, as that will also help support the show. Now, with that being said, Rick, thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Dominic, and this is Beyond the Bat Signal, signing off.